All right, ready to go.
Okay, I'll call to order the August 16th, 2023 meeting.
Commissioner Doug Neely. That excused. Commissioner Rocky Smith is excused. Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Present.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Morrow.
Here.
Vice Chair Sean Cross.
Here.
And Chair Mike Mitchell.
Here. Do we have any citizen comments?
We do have one from Carla Laws. I'm not sure if it's for the urban renewal meeting. Yep. Carla Laws.
Okay. Carla, come on up. Carla Laws.
Carla Laws, Oregon City. I just wanted to mention that I choose the Cove tonight. I'm really excited about that. I've always been concerned about the environment and what, the habitat there and what's been going on in terms of the blue algae. I see a lot of opportunity there in terms of, obviously, the paper mill projects happening with Grand Ron, and then having on the North End District, tying our city together would be totally awesome. I think it would bring a lot of tourism here. I think it would also help environmental issues, which is a big concern to me. And I also think it would boost our economy. So I think it's a win-win. So I just wanted to let you know.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Okay, we're on to item number...
Chair, may I have a point of procedural process? So
Sure.
Do we not do the same thing that we do with the city commission, that we have citizen comments for items that are not already on the agenda?
I was curious about that as I looked at this agenda, so maybe we need to add that same bullet point that's on the commission agenda.
I appreciate the commentary, but
yeah,
my understanding, we've hit same with urban renewals, that we talk about things that are not on the agenda.
Yeah, so you can update that. Great, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to discussion item number 1, information for discussion and direction related to Clackamette Cove. Mr. Conkle.
Thank you. Evening, Urban Renewal Commission members. Staff has been asked to investigate the reestablishment of a dredging permit, or if necessary, a new dredging permit to improve water quality within the Cove area, as well as what would be required to change the 3-basin rule to allow the highest treated water type from Water Environmental Services to be released into the Cove. Commissioner O'Donnell requested that the attached minutes from a July 28, 2023 meeting be provided as background for discussion. In addition, President Mitchell requested that the request for qualifications for the confluence at Troutdale project be provided to the Urban Renewal Commission members for review and discussion. So we did attach both of those documents, and I was hoping that maybe Commissioner O'Donnell, since he was at the meeting and had the minutes, can probably talk to them a little bit more in terms of what was discussed and kind of some of the directions, so that I don't want to infer something in the minutes that I might not have realized. And then the other component was, pretty in-depth request for qualifications for the confluence at Troutdale, which is looking at a piece of property along the Sandy River that is has a development potential as well as a pedestrian connectivity and habitat restoration, all encompassed into one type of a project, and really trying to identify if there are partners out there knowing what the vision of Troutdale is for that area, with some parameters of what their ideas are, what would come forward that. And so I didn't have a chance to figure out what came of this request, but so we've included that request here. I'd also like to update the commission, not necessarily about the Cove, but so we have a meeting with a representative from Department of State Lands for next week to talk about the dredging permit. We did forward them the previous permit that we had and the information on that, so they're able to look at that, and we'll have a meeting with them to discuss what are the options related to that. We've also reached out, there was some discussion in the minutes that Commissioner O'Donnell had with the meeting about, you know, what would be the opportunities for, let's say, aeration at the Cove to improve water quality, if that would be, you know, if it could be proven that, you know, moving that water in some type of an aeration manner worked, you know, could that be an option there? So we did reach out to the Lake Corps there in Lake Oswego. They have a pretty significant aeration system for the lake itself. So they have offered a tour that we could go out, meet with them. So was thinking maybe Commissioner O'Donnell, we do need to see if there was a limitation, because part of it would be the on-site aeration pumping station, as well as a tour on the water to see some of these aerators that are in the system itself. We've also reached out to Wes and had some initial discussions about utilizing the treated water as a potential to increase water into the Cove. So I think we're going to, you know, more discussion is needed there. They had some pretty significant concerns about how effective that, if you could get over the 3-basin rule hurdle, how effective that would be, just because you still have a nutrient load with that wastewater being put into a body, you know, so it's really multiple things of adding water, but then how do you circulate that water, get it out, refresh? So it was an initial discussion. We can follow up with that as well. Mr. Graham has been looking into, we had significant amount of information related to the Stimpson property. So we're reaching out to a couple consultants to try to get quotes that we can bring back to the commission to see if that's something that would be interested in terms of looking at someone to do a review of the studies and sampling that was done, as well as the no further action permit that was issued by the state, and what that means relative to the whole Stimpson property that's currently left. And then we did entering into a contract to do some of the survey work for the 2 residential properties on Tumwater and South Second, just to figure out where those property lines are in relation to any encroachments that may exist on those properties. So, so threw a lot at you there, but just wanted to give you an update of where we're at to maybe help with your discussion on the 2 documents that have been put forward tonight.
Great, thank you for that. Sounds like we're making small steps on several projects, so that's a good thing. Just keep moving the ball a little bit. I think what I'd like to do at this point is call on Commissioner O'Donnell to give us some more background. We all were provided the minutes from the meeting that he met concerning water quality in the Cove and mitigation and possibilities. So if you'd like to take over this part of the discussion and provide any more information you think we should have.
Yeah, for a moment, I realize we're time limited tonight. So first I want to compliment Mr. Conkle. I mean, everything you've touched upon were proposed solutions to the Cove, and you've been following up on all 3 of those, and you enumerated them, and I won't re-enumerate them. I feel from time to time, you get the right people in the right place, and I honestly feel that this committee that I met with is Richard Craven, who's here tonight, John Borden, Doug DeHart. Those guys bring a wealth of value, and for those, I hope everyone's read the summation that I wrote. Their qualifications are stated at the beginning of the report, and they are there. And Mr. Craven here tonight, instrumental in obtaining the Cove dredging permit, formerly Corps of Engineers, environmental consultant, extensive managerial experience in fisheries, wildlife, bank stabilization, swales, Clackamette River Basin Council member, and former Natural Resources Committee member. I do want to say that I know that the staff report focused primarily on dredging, and that is a component of the water exchange in conjunction with possibly introducing West. This report was a first steps in possible solutions. And I look forward to, I think we're going to have a work session and invite each of these gentlemen to it to share their knowledge, and particularly when it comes time to, you know, what requires a permit, what doesn't, what are what's the value of each of these approaches, what background information we need, do we have to worry about making a situation worse rather than better? And I think that's a work session all the way. We don't have time to do that tonight. The aeration was a proposed solution, and hopefully with what Mr. Conkle's done, we can gain some information from speaking with those people, and I would be more than happy to accompany that. And if we're allowed others, and any of these gentlemen on this panel want to go, I would encourage it, because I feel that this is what's commonly referred to as a blue ribbon committee. And to me, it fits the definition of a group of exceptional people appointed to investigate, study, or analyze a given question, and they're independent of political influence and no direct authority of their own. It comes from their ability to use their expertise to issue findings or recommendations, which then can be used by decision-making personnel. And I think we've got that. What I'm really encouraged by is we've had an open exchange of information between staff through Mr. Conkle to this committee, and we've agreed to share that, and it's been very fruitful. The committee sees what the city's doing, the city sees what this group is doing. Mr. Borden, who's not here tonight, and who I hope will be at the work session, he is one of 3 authors of the 3 basin rule, and he can speak very fluently to that, and I look forward to that. So that's where we're at. I mean, if we don't want to make things worse, we want to make things better, we need to take steps to do that. And from what Mr. Conkle says, he's already done some preliminary steps. The contacting of the people that issue the dredging permit is a big first step, because part of the water exchange is introduction of water and evacuation of water. And when Mr. Borden, one of our members, was there the other day, there was the only evacuation of water through the mouth of the cove would have been subsurface, because it was totally shut off by the gravel bar. So we recognize that the algae bloom is our first concern. We categorize it in the area of human health, and we recognize that's kind of a seasonal thing, so that actually might present opportunities. I know the first time I ran it by Commissioner Mitchell, we talked about, okay, if we do put aeration, do we have to run power to it? Well, can we solar power it? Well, I don't know what kind of power it takes. Those are the kind of questions that move a project along. So that's a first step. If I know he's not prepared to speak tonight, if he just wants to stand up and be recognized, Mr. Craven, you were here, you were part of that and valuable participant. I want to thank you, sir. I don't think we need anything other than what we've summarized, but I do hope that you and the others can make it when the time comes to do a work session and talk about how do we progress through these things. And I will leave it at that, because we've got a busy agenda and 1 hour to get it done. And I think that's a fair summation. Is there anything you'd like to add, sir, or does that pretty much cover it? Yes. And if you do, come to the mic if you have anything to add. And please state your name and city of residence.
Richard Craven, City of Oregon City resident for many years, and environmental consultant for over 30 years, fisheries, wildlife, water quality, worked in various places, mostly in my own firm for 5 years. Aeration was mentioned, and a second ago, and I wrote a couple things down here on aeration. You need to make sure you find a good water quality expert to see whether or not it would actually be effective in the Cove. It's all a matter of temperature and other things going on there. Also, you mentioned the 3 basins rule. In terms of putting water from the treatment plant in the Cove, you have to deal with the 3 basins rule, as you know. And, but also, you're probably not going to be able to put that much water in there, and it's going to be at a temperature that may be similar to the Cove. And therefore, the idea to improve water quality is to reduce the water temperature probably, as well as mixing and so forth. But if you're putting the same temperature water and not that much, I'm not sure you're going to get that much of a change in water temperature. And that also leads to the volume of water you might need to the Cove to actually get a flushing flow out. And the Cove is big. You calculate the volume, just guesstimate the volume based on, length, width, depth, and so forth. And you're going to find that it takes a lot of flow to go into that volume to have any perceptible impact on the water quality. On permits, you mentioned permits. I did the permits on that years ago, And, first question, as I mentioned to you, 2 weeks ago when you had that meeting, is that ask the Corps of Engineers if, for the existing that's no longer valid apparently, ask them if it was valid, would it be reissued? What you would have to do to get that reissued? And, we did a lot of environmental, background work, to get those permits to begin with. You know, that's the Fish and Wildlife Service, Corps of Engineers, DSL and so forth, ODFW. So anyway.
Sir, and you just fleshed out the things I just highlighted and touched upon, and it reflects the quality of the meeting we had because I was hard pressed to keep up with the notes. And so many good ideas, but they are slow in coming because there's a lot of preambles to doing any one of those before we do them.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate you and the others and what you brought to the table.
And I have one final comment, I think, on it. The original permit, I went out there and looked at that a few weeks ago to see the, deposition. And there'll always be deposition there, as I explained to you at the meeting. And, the problem is that the original permit had X amount of cubic yards to be excavated. And it had a channel and so forth. The excavation now required to get flow in and out of that cove at low water, in summer, late summer, fall, is going to be much bigger project than it was before.
I recall the conversation exactly, and the fact that it is not going to have vertical walls. There's going to be a slope to either side of it and increasing the amount of material to be removed. So we won't go into that in detail tonight, but I think the work session and discussion, apparently Mr. Conkle's already started gathering information, which we need, and we'll see what we can do immediately, or as close to immediately as things move in the public sector. So I appreciate everything you've had to say and everything you've added, and I think that sums up for the evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the other commissioners?
Just pretend I turned the green light on.
What?
I said, please pretend I turned the green light on. If I may, please.
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. I thank you for the notes. They were helpful. What I took from the notes is that in your summary, you state, to me, this is the problem we're trying to solve. So to mitigate water quality in the area of the Cove, correct? Okay, so that gives me my base. What I'm concerned about is how we are taking the information we received from RestoCap about the fact that aeration isn't going to do anything. So we don't know whether it will or won't, but I went back to that old information that we had and kind of took a look at that, and that, again, is not my area of expertise, so I was reading it very carefully. So I'm trying to figure out how we take information that we received from them when they were, they are also experts in their field, and sort of meld it with the information that we are going to get eventually, and some of the information you've received so far. So that, because I didn't see anything in their documents that suggested aeration might be a solution. And maybe it isn't, because we haven't really fully investigated it. So that's just where I'm coming from. I thought the information was valid, and I guess my gut feeling confirms what Mr. Craven just said, that the process of getting a dredging permit is not exactly going back to what we did before. It's something much more than we are even going to be able to imagine. Things have just gotten very complicated in the ensuing, years since we had that original permit.
One of the things we emphasized during the meeting is we were not necessarily seeking to make a navigable channel. We were just seeking to reduce the height of that gravel bar to exchange of water. So the whole concept, and again, the very things he brought out, what's the volume of water in the Cove? What's the volume of water we'd be introducing? What would their temperature variables be? And at some point, I'm told that the surface temperature might be as high as 85 degrees. Well, that's good if we're introducing 70-degree water. If it's 70 and 70, what's the net gain, as Mr. Craven just said? So again, it's the first of proposed solutions. We may disqualify some as unworkable, and the search has already begun for, the concept behind aeration was that water is warmer at the surface, therefore if we can exchange it vertically, maybe we can dissuade the growth of algae. Well, that's a concept. We don't know if it's true or not. So it was just a good first step from knowledgeable people.
Is that information from RestoreCap something that can be provided to all of us? Because I have not seen that I recall.
We can do, that's what we were just talking about, was we had quite a bit of information. We were gonna go back and look at the last presentation that they gave, but then also go back and see what other technical documents that we have, maybe related to bathymetry. You know, I know there was quite a bit of work done on temperature, water, you know, and I think going back and reading it again, because remember, RestoreCap's premise was to try to create a system that didn't require continuous investment. So I don't remember exactly if aeration wasn't considered because it wasn't going to make a difference by changing, in moving the water, or if because there was a long-term cost with aeration, right? And that was the same rationale around the dredging. They felt like you dredge it, you know, it could be 1 year, it could be 10 years, you're probably going to have to dredge it again. So they were trying to find solutions that didn't require long-term investment or maintenance. So we were just actually talking about that. We'll go back and kind of create, you know, recreate what information we have related to things we're talking about here.
One other point, and this is to Mr. Conkle's credit, we didn't touch upon sources of financing, which in the end, how do you pay for these things? And we're bantering about some different ideas, whether it be in search of some federal funding under the Clean Water Act or some other aspects, in addition to possibly urban renewal dollars, but dollars outside of urban renewal if that is an alternative source of financing. So not only what you do, but how do you pay for it? And Mr. Conkle has some thoughts on that, and we can share all those at a work session.
Okay.
Mr. Morrow.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. First of all, I'm just very excited to be having this conversation. This is where I grew up swimming, and now I won't go near it because of the issues that we have there. And so the prospect of being able to get this resolved is very exciting to me. Thank you to Commissioner O'Donnell for taking that meeting for us and for this information. I'm looking at the slide deck that was given to us in September of 22 from RestoreCap, and I'm excited specifically because in the document of the meeting minutes, there were solutions that went beyond just the dredging. I know that's been something that's been talked about in the past, but I think the mayor may have, because I don't remember them dismissing aeration. I don't think that was something that they talked about, but what I am seeing from them right now is our model results show that when HABs are expected to be the most problematic, July through September, during the warmest periods with the least freshwater inputs, neither dredging nor the addition of connections to the Clackamette River improve circulation or mixing. However, these solutions do improve residence time from infinity to 1 day turnover expected. And so, you know, because we have had expert input on this before, talking about how not only is it an unsustainable way for us to be looking at this, so I am excited to hear more about the aeration and the other opportunities there.
I think it's on the table until it ain't.
That's exactly it. You got to start somewhere.
And to me, what's exciting about going after this particular issue is there's multiple justifications for doing it. There's a public safety issue. There's the opportunity to have a water access for our community separate of any development that might happen later on, but it also helps set the table for development that might happen later on. But the investment would be worthwhile, notwithstanding if anything else ever happens, or if it doesn't happen for 10 years. We could end up with a community access water area that's safe for people walking their dogs, or, you know, wading with their children in water that could be dangerous. So there's many different justifications for it. And I think the good news with that is with all these different justifications opens up different sourcing or funding source possibilities as well.
I think, yeah, so, you know, not to get too far ahead here, but, you know, I think I would ask the Urban Renewal Commission, because there maybe need to be discussions with the city commission, but, we've always thought of this as an urban renewal project, realizing that there is a water quality component, a habitat restoration component, a public access component, a bike ped connectivity component, a park component, but we've only thought of it in terms of urban renewal, right? Realizing the limitations that currently exist in urban renewal, unless we're going to take a different position than what's happening in terms of the litigation and or going out for another vote, do we focus more on, is this more of a parks project? Is this a bike ped project component to it? Is it a water quality, stormwater component, right? Because that's where we start talking about, you could start to look at different funding sources potentially to fill those puzzle pieces, rather than how we've traditionally thought about it was urban renewal is going to be the project that kind of handles everything, right? So, I'm not asking, unless you want to, I'm not asking for a big discussion about it, but that's kind of how I'm starting to think about this differently from what we've been doing for the last, 15 years, whatever it's been.
Yeah, I think rather than enter into the financial aspects of it tonight, we'll include that as a sub-component of the work session. But I appreciate your creativity and looking at alternate ways of doing it, and I think that'll bear fruit. So we're off and running.
Mayor McGriff.
Thank you. I think it is, as City Manager Conkle stated, it is a multiple component project, and I think that with the Urban Renewal Commission and the City Commission, with the addition of, working in concert with Parks, Public Works, all the departments, I think we have a project that could benefit from multiple sources, depending on how we classify things. For instance, if the trail or the path might be considered as a public conveyance similar to the McLaughlin Promenade, that means transportation money could possibly be utilized. But I mean, I'm thinking a little bit, beyond, but I think it is not just it's an urban renewal project, but I think it goes beyond the Urban Renewal Commission in terms of us partnering and working together with not only our departments, but I think also, I think the people on the City Commission, I understand they're quite reasonable, and we can approach them about this particular project and have a conversation about how they might be wanting to be involved, or how we might want them as the Urban Renewal Commission to have them involved, because again, I think it's broader than just that. This project, as I envisioned it when we had the original master plan, is a project that benefits so many other things in Oregon City than just getting the property redeveloped for residential. It hits, to me, almost all the targets that we've looked at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
thank you.
I agree. It really does kind of stand on its own for multiple reasons. Yes, Commissioner Morrow.
Thank you. Yeah, I because of how encompassing this is, as was said, it opens a lot of opportunities for funding in different areas. I would just caution that, as we learned, I remember when Mr. Herman was going around trying to rally support for the mitigation credit idea, which we then learned restricted, if we would have gone down that route, would have restricted our ability to then use that restored area for recreational purposes. And I believe strongly that a restoration of this site needs to include public recreation and not just private development. And so just a word of caution that even though there are plenty of opportunities, given the many uses of this, we need to be careful about which areas we do seek for funding, as they may restrict our ability to use that property down the line.
And realize at this meeting, we limited that discussion exclusively to water quality because that's where it all stands. I mean, I remember the meetings way back when we were talking about developing it, and the portrayal by the developer was of a blue lagoon. And the discussion was, there's a big difference between selling frontage on a blue lagoon versus a frog pond. And that's where we're at. So we can, as you said, so many values, including, there's people on here like Doug DeHart, Fish and Wildlife, National Marine Fisheries. I mean, there's an interest in that as a breeding ground for Andromeda species or for lamprey eels. So once again, there we are, another avenue of financing, but I do take Commissioner Marl's words to heart. Be careful who you engage, because they might impose limitations along with funding, so. Very good, thanks, everyone.
So what would the next step be?
Well, I guess, if I could just say, so I mean, I've explained what we're doing at the staff level. I guess if there's concerns, let me know, otherwise we're gonna continue to go down those paths that we've identified related to meeting, concerning the dredging permit, discussions with Wes about the 3-basin rule, and, you know, potentially looking at working with the Lake Corps to try to get some information on what they're doing out there and what those costs are for that. So that's what we're focused on. And then I heard, you know, request for an Urban Renewal Commission work session, inviting the members who were at the meeting with Commissioner O'Donnell for a work session. So I guess if that's the pleasure, just, you know, let me know.
Everybody agree with that
Thoughts on that?
approach?
I see one head nod. I'll nod my head on it.
Obviously.
Yes? Okay. So we do have a consensus to go forward with that, yes.
Okay.
I mean, we got John Borden, who was on this Blue Ribbon panel, one of 3 authors of the 3-basin rule. What more can you ask? So, there we go. Thank you, sir.
So where are we, you made mention of the Troutdale project. I tried my very best to connect with Mayor Lauer at the OMA meeting, and we were just in different sessions, so I was not able to follow up with him to see where that project, because I noticed the date as well. You know, I'm assuming they got a request for proposal. I don't know. Do you know, Mr. Graham, where they are on that project? I didn't have a chance to Google them and see where they were.
Based on the RFQ, it submit RFP to developers. I don't know whether or not, I don't know who responded to it or that
Whether
type of
they've
thing.
selected someone or not?
Well, with the commission's indulgence,
Yeah.
I was sent that document by Mr. Seth Henderson, and he is here, and I'm kind of getting hand signals that he might have some more information. You could fill us in on where they are in that project, given the fact that we have a hard stop before 7 because we're gonna swear in our new police chief, and I see a crowd gathering already, so we want to get done on time. But would you mind coming up if you have any more information regarding?
Are you saying I talk a lot?
No, I'm just saying we have a hard stop. Take it for what you will.
Seth Henderson, Southwest Portland. Yeah, so they went through the RFQ process. They received 3 proposals. That was Wood Partners, Ethos, and Capstone. They've awarded to Capstone, so they're now negotiating the agreement with Capstone to move forward on that development.
Was that the project in total? Because they're willing to partition out the project from the way I read the document.
That's the entirety of the project. So yeah, the city had a contaminated site. They went through the remediation to get it ready for that RFQ process and then went through it.
So they're probably negotiating a disposition and development agreement at this point? Okay.
Process work. So, thank you, Mr. Anderson. To me, when you look at that document, the parallels between that project and a potential project for us,
For the Cove,
it was, for the Cove, it's virtually identical. There's some more challenges at the Cove than on their project, but they had concerns as well. So that's why I wanted to provide that to the commissioners, just as an example of what could be done and how the process could work. So
I'm glad that we were able to receive that, because again, in my imagination, that is the type of proposal we would send out to someone to either continue with the vision that was originally envisioned for the Cove, or changes to it, something to that effect. This project, I saw, as you stated, many similarities. I see where we would have just a slight difference in places, but that's kind of that's the big picture that I'm thinking of, in terms of how we can work with a development partner to really and truly fulfill the goals that the commission had when they initiated the Cove project to begin with. They kind of, went sideways a little bit.
I saw it the same way. I saw it as a blueprint to be followed and, do some modifications and, you know, sincerest form of flattery, imitation.
Deal liberally.
We don't have to do this from scratch. We have a blueprint, so.
And if we're,
I'd be interested in hearing, a little bit more about it, if it's possible that, you know, maybe the community development director or whoever is the project manager for this, maybe it's, Mr. Young, Ray Young. I did have a chance to meet him, last year at the, league conference, just very briefly.
I think that the advantage of a document like that, if we're upfront in what we require, then when a developer comes on, whatever those added costs might be, if we want park space or we want a non-powered boat ramp or something, you know, included, they just factor those costs into their pro forma, and away we go. It either pencils out or it doesn't, and then, you know, then possibility urban renewal financing, all that kicks in. But if we're upfront about it, then we don't end up in a situation where we have to settle for something less than what we want.
And I think this commission is well beyond wanting to settle. I think we've been down that road, not us personally, but prior commissions have been down that road, and we saw that, you know, our vision was not able to be fulfilled, and the vision that we as a previous commission, not us, but the previous commission promulgated to the community, this is what we thought we were going to, you know, this is what we thought we were going to have. So I see this not only as a blueprint for this project, but I see it as a blueprint for the other properties that we own to get them out in front of the larger development community to move these forward. Because, and I think you've aptly stated this, both Mr. O'Donnell and Mr. Mitchell, is that we have the ability right now today to move these projects forward and show the community that this is what urban renewal really does.
The proof of concept.
Yep.
As Mr. O'Donnell
Yep, that's my
rightly
phrase.
saying. But it's
Well, it
very
worked.
true.
It's working for them.
Any other comments from the commissioners on, related to the confluence document? Or any other topic related to the Cove?
Let's keep moving forward, like Mr. O'Donnell
Well,
said.
it sounds like we have some steps in the process. So, is there an interest? I don't know if they would be interested in coming here, but would there be an interest from Troutdale, for us to hear from someone from Troutdale, or is that premature?
I'd like to. I don't think it's premature. I think it's part of our due diligence, so to speak, on looking at urban renewal.
I'm just wondering if it would be worth, I mean, we can reach out and talk to them and see if they'd be willing to come. I do wonder if it'd be more informative once an agreement is reached. I just don't know how much they're gonna be able to talk about while you're negotiating a development agreement.
They're in negotiation.
And my understanding, we can call and see where they're at.
If you could just do that, that would
Right.
be, you know,
Yeah.
talk
You know,
to Mr. Young.
I'm sure that, you know, I could come give a presentation on generalities about the Cove, you know, but obviously there's gonna be more specifics once the agreement is agreed to that you can talk about, right? The financing, you
That
know.
sound reasonable?
Yeah, he can reach out to their city manager and see what's going on with it.
And that's fine, but I think the document in and of itself has value. I mean, you can actually start substituting,
We said liberally.
Scratch up.
yeah, scratch and substitute and say,
Clackamette Cove.
this is how it could, because, as the gentleman said, it offered options. You know, do you want to proceed as partners? Do you want to do it independently? I mean, it is an incredibly good document, and we could put it to use. I would say, start looking at it for how would we put it to use? You know, make a dry run at a document and just see what you see comes up as impediments to success.
I think we have more information to get, however, so, awesome.
And then, please keep us updated about a potential lake core tour, because I would be interested in that.
Yeah, me too.
I've been on the lake, but I haven't seen the aeration system.
Anything else
Nope. Would you like
on this
to
topic?
get to the next
Okay,
item?
then we will move on to item number 2, minutes of the July 5th, 2023 URC meeting.
I have
Any
reviewed
addition or
them and-
corrections?
Nope, I would move they be approved as submitted.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call for the vote, please.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sean Cross,
Yes.
and Chair Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Any communications?
No, sir, not tonight.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone up here, and thank you to those of you who spoke tonight. This is encouraging. I can get real optimistic about this.
I can too.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.